Flysafair says it's now reached a formal agreement with trade union Solidarity through the CCMA, effectively ending a 2-week strike by pilots. Now, a portion of airline employees and pilots were striking over a range of issues, including disputes over roster authority. Let's bring in the Deputy General Secretary for Solidarity, Helgard Cronje. It's good to talk to you. Thanks for coming on. 12 days of a lockout and strike action. Are you happy with the agreement that's been reached, your members, that is?
Look, I mean, it was a mediator's proposal that the parties at the end accepted, which is a good indication that none of the parties were happy with it. But I mean, that's the absolute middle ground. That's what needed to be done to settle the dispute. And we got a mandate from our members. So I think it's a relief more than anything else. And for us, it's sad that employees have to strike for 12 days to get protection for some of their basic rights.
Yeah, you say in your statement as well that there were no winners in this process. Give us some of the smaller victories, I suppose, that your members can claim. And I imagine that comes mostly in the form of how the roster system is managed.
Yes, absolutely. So most of the things that we agreed on the roster were on the table in February already. But the company only wanted to implement them as soft rules, things that they can change as they please. So for us, the big one is the fact that that is a written agreement now, and they cannot be changed unilaterally. So that's a big one. We wanted a weekend off per month. The eventual agreement is basically a 60-hour weekend off during each 6-week period, with a minimum of 9 weekends per year. So that's a compromise, but at least there are weekends off, and it's time that pilots can spend with their families. And it basically also makes sure that it's not on the normal clock in and clock out times, so it's a bit longer. And yeah, it's a good win. I think the other thing is that they can swap days off out and they can claim it back. If they have to work an off day, they can claim it back within the next month. So there are small wins, small protections, and it does create a base and basic protection.
So I see one of the additions there is that pilots will receive at least 10 days off a month. And if we take a look at usual contract work, permanent work, that's well below the 15 or 20-day standard, right?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's 10 days off. So it's basically, if you want to call it like that, 10 days that
No, Helgard,
weekends.
Helgard, I think I read that wrong. I thought it was 10 days off per year. So am I thinking right? Yeah, per year. So pilots will receive 10 days off per month. That's incredible, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Look, I mean, the thing that you have to remember is that it doesn't always fall on weekends. So they can be off during the week, for example, when their wives are at work or their husbands are at work and their children are at school. So for us, it was important to get that weekend in to ensure that there's proper quality family time and a work-life balance. The 10 days off is good. Obviously, that comes in terms of fatigue. So it is a good thing. The other important thing with those 10 days is that they should be 2 days following each other, so it's not one day, single days off. Otherwise, they don't rest out properly.
Yeah. Is this also because of just the hours that pilots work when they are on the clock?
Yes, absolutely. Look, I mean, not all their hours are flying hours, but there's a lot of work that gets done outside of flying. And all of that contributed to fatigue and rest time and gets added up. I know that the company at some point referred to the 63 hours that they spend in the cockpit. But there's a lot of other things going on during the workday of a pilot that one should consider. And all of those also add up to the fatigue. So as I've said, this creates a proper base. I think it protects it's the minimum, it protects the base and the minimum. And that is important. I think that's what we wanted. And it should. The most important thing is the company shouldn't be able to change it. And
in terms of salary increases, because we know that pilots had made demands, Flysafair had put an offer on the table?
Yeah, look, I think what we said earlier, that the discussions surrounding the increases will become easier if we settle the roster dispute, is exactly how it played out. Essentially, our members accepted a 4-year agreement. At the start, the 3-year agreement was on the table, and that was our mandate during the second or third round of negotiations. The company said if they are to offer more, they want the extra year to ensure stability. And so our members will receive a 6%, 6.5% in year 2, 6.8 in year 3, and a 6.9 in year 4.
And as you said, this is an agreement that could have been reached back in February.
Absolutely. I mean, no employee should need to strike for 12 days to get basic rights protected. And the company indicated during the process that they've implemented many of these rules into the system, and they were reasonable rules according to them, but they weren't willing to agree to them in writing. And pilots had to strike for 12 days to get them to put it in writing. And, I mean, that's not how you operate with labor relations. For us, it's an irresponsible way of going about labor relations. And the company really would need to look at how they go about their labor relations. Otherwise, this settlement agreement is not going to keep pilots at SAFA, and it's not going to keep them in South Africa. It still remains a concern for us.
Solidarity's Helgard Cronje, thanks for joining us this afternoon. And we know that Flysafair has also released a media briefing to this effect. They've talked about, most importantly for the South African travelling public, this means that Safair will begin restoring... Thank you, Helgard. Safair will begin restoring full capacity to the market, all aircraft returning to active duty, schedules will be normalised, and of course, very importantly, airfares will stabilise in the coming weeks.